Sleep Token has a new album out called Even in Arcadia. And I want to ask the question, is it worth the hype? Because it's one of those bands people either love or hate. Some people call it metal, some people say they're not metal, but the truth is they are both. They're able to mix genres like pop and hip hop and R&B and metal and alternative, and they make it sound natural. It doesn't sound cut and paste. When I first heard this band, I didn't like them. First time I listened to them was their 2023 album, Take Me Back to Eden. And I listened to that a few times because I was doing a review. And after a few listens, I started to get into it. So therefore, I kind of like the band, even though some of the songs are hit and miss, which I will talk about later. The album has a few songs I liked a lot, others I didn't like that much. I'm not going to go into any history, but I'll give you some details on the album. It was released on May 9th, 2025 through RCA Records, and they released 3 singles called Emergence, Caramel, and Damocles. The album has 10 songs. It was a little under an hour long. The songs are varying lengths, somewhere from 7 to 8 minutes. Others were in the 3 to 4 minute range. Some songs had elements of extreme metal. Other songs were just pop and R&B without any of that metal. But let me talk about the songs, and then at the end, I'll give my final thoughts and my score. The album has a pretty strong start. The first 2 tracks are Look to Windward and the single Emergence. Pretty much these songs kind of follow that same formula, but there's some variations, so let's talk about them. Basically, both songs start out like pop songs. You hear that R&B singing, then at one point in the song they bring in heavy guitars. So for example, Look to Windward has a big metalcore style guitar riffs in the middle of the song, then they go back to that R&B sound. But on the other hand, Emergence uses guitars more for rhythm, not necessarily playing heavy guitar riffs. I enjoyed both songs. I like the fact that song Look to Windward gets really heavy and goes full extreme metal at the end. And the same thing for the song Emergence, but Emergence had some unique qualities like the jazzy saxophone at the end. So the first 2 songs are really good, but these next 2 are going to be a little weaker, so let me talk about them. The next 2 songs are called Past Self and Dangerous. I'm putting these ones together because they're 2 songs that were a little shorter and they lack that extreme metal sound. For example, the song Past Self has some of that R&B singing and bright and poppy piano with a hip-hop drum beat. Then they start doing these modern rap, and that's pretty much it. There weren't any elements of metal, so it got me thinking, are there going to be other songs that are like this that are just pop and don't have any metal? And the answer is yes, there will be another one later. But the next song, Dangerous, was very similar. They played some heavy riffs towards the end. So I would say they are the 2 weaker tracks just because I like it when the band gets heavy and just goes full extreme metal. Next song is called Caramel. It was one of the best tracks. It was also one of the singles. Let me talk about it just by itself. This one starts like many of the other songs. You've got the soft keyboards, sounds like a music box, and the soft R&B singing. Then they incorporate some hip-hop drum beats, and they play some distorted guitars in the background. So it was more of a pop song, but the guitars were used more for rhythm. So I was thinking to myself that maybe this is going to be a song like the previous 2 where it's just very laid back. But then from out of nowhere, they go full extreme metal with the black metal style vocals, and it's kind of in the background at first. They don't abandon that R&B sound, and they get really heavy later with traditional black metal blast beats and guitar riffs. So I was really surprised to hear them doing this extreme black metal, but they made it work. Like I said before, like these songs are not cut and paste. They find a way to like blend them together. And it didn't sound disjointed, it didn't sound forced, and they made it fit. So that's why it was one of my favorite songs. I'm going to talk about the next 3 songs. I'll be honest with you, I didn't like them that much. They lacked the heaviness, and they were more pop-leaning songs. So like I said before, when I was thinking if there are going to be any songs that were lacking in the metal department, and the next song falls under that category. It's the title track, Even in Arcadia. It's just R&B, pop, and that's all I have to say about it. After that, the song Provider had that same pop and hip-hop beats, but there were a few heavy riffs towards the end, but they were minimal. It was more of an electronic pop song. And the third single, Damocles, which is a laid-back pop ballad with singing. Another one had some heavy guitars, but used more for rhythm. So I didn't like it as much, but on a positive note, the drumming on the second half of the song was really good. So I like that aspect of it. It's time for the last 2 songs in the album. I thought they were very good. Probably the penultimate song called Gethsemane Probably my favorite. It started like most of the songs. They did something very different. They were playing these jazz-style guitars. It reminded me of that band, Polyphia. They're playing that virtuoso style playing. I like that, but then they played some heavy and metalcore style guitars, and they went back to the softer pop singing, and they played some cool alternative rock guitar riffs, and then went back to that pop sound, and they ended with some hip hop rapping. So I thought it was one of the most experimental tracks, and that's probably why it might be my favorite song. But the album ends up pretty high with Infinite Baths. It's a long song, about 8 minutes, starts with the usual keyboards and R&B, and then after about 5 minutes, they get really heavy. They play some riffs. They incorporate that black metal sound. They bring in harsh vocals, and then they just go from black metal to metalcore with some breakdowns, and it just maintains that heavy sound throughout the entire runtime, and that's just the end of the album. So in conclusion, I thought it was a decent album. It had its highs, it had its lows. Sometimes I liked it more than the others. I thought it was very well produced. The musicianship is very good. I think it actually has potential to go up for me and get better after a few listens, the same way it did with a previous album 2 years ago. My score for now is going to be an 8 out of 10 with a potential of it going up. Check out my review of Take Me Back to Eden from 2023. You can hear my first impressions of this band. That was the first album I had ever heard from this band. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please give this video a like. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe. If you have not already, I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.